How could a Roman get rich by burning his own city? Rome was on fire almost every day, historians believe. Usually, these fires were small, but they often spread quick. That's because Rome, despite some buildings made of stone, was mostly wood. Not just houses, but even Rome's first colosseums were wood, making fire one of Rome's top dangers. But despite this, Rome refused to create any fire brigade for its first 700 years. No one wanted to pay for one. That's because when Rome was a republic, the state rarely paid for public buildings and services. Instead, rich aristocrats were given the option to fund them out of the goodness of their heart. But shockingly, this didn't always work, until a war hero, Crassus, decided to make firefighting his business. Crassus was an aristocrat who, as a child, had seen his parents murdered and his inheritance stolen by Rome's military reformer Marius. That same pain and desperation Crassus saw in the countless Roman families who had lost everything to fire. To do something about it, Crassus would first regain his wealth and fame by helping a dictator overthrow Marius and by then defeating Spartacus' gladiator revolt. With his new fame and means, Crassus created Rome's first fire brigade. But since Rome was so big, and with only buckets to put out fire instead of hoses, Crassus needed a tremendously huge fire brigade. Yet despite costing a fortune, Crassus paid for all firefighters himself. However, when Crassus firefighters arrived at your burning house, they would refuse to put it out. Instead of a water bucket, they showed you a contract to sell your house to Crassus, on the spot, well below its true value. Remember, your house was likely made of wood, and even if it wasn't, it was filled with straw bedding and lamp oil. With fire spreading so rapidly, with so little time to think, most homeowners begrudgingly sold. Only then did Crassus instruct his firemen to put out the fire. But they often worked so slow that houses often burned beyond any value. This was 100% on purpose to allow the fire to spread to other houses, which Crassus then ruthlessly bought too. Not only did this give Crassus tons of little plots, but larger areas that were much more desirable. For Crassus had meanwhile bought 500 slaves, who he had trained as architects and builders. These renovated burned homes if possible, or tore them down to replace them with larger luxury estates or lucrative apartment blocks. The now homeless previous owners, meanwhile, provided Crassus with renters, who he crammed into tiny apartment blocks at predatory rates. Crassus didn't hide any of this, it was 100% in the open, 100% legal. This was called out by famous elites like Cicero, but no one stopped him. This only made Crassus' fire brigade more aggressive, so aggressive that soon much of Rome was owned by Crassus, making him the richest man up to that point that Rome had ever known. But this grew the jealousy of Rome's other elites, so Crassus' fix was to buy their friendship, or rather to become Rome's elite piggy bank, lending rather than giving, but at very generous rates, at least for those who could return him a political favor. Crassus' wealth funded the political rise of not only himself, becoming the equivalent of Rome's president, but also his two partners, Pompey and Julius Caesar. There seemed no end to Crassus' power, nor any justice for his numerous victims. That was until he invaded Iran with more pomp than plan. This ended with Crassus receiving his son's head on a stick, a stronger Persia, a weaker Rome, and Crassus becoming the laughingstock of both civilizations.